All right. Jumping right back into I Am That by Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj.
Morad muting too.
Ah, yes, thank you, Rena. Muting everyone. And please feel free to unmute for any reason. If it's good enough for you, it's good enough for me. All right, we're on chapter 44. I am is true, all else is inference. And our questioner's really been in a really trying to grasp, which is probably the problem. You see, because we ask these questions in an effort to understand something that cannot be understood. At a certain level in Vedanta, it's not about a piece of information. It's a divine knowledge. It's something at some point that comes through simply knowing. And what do you know? You can't say it. It can't be said. So why can't it be said? Well, because of that triad thing. Because it can't fit in the mind, and we can only know things in the secular sense, or learn things that fit into mind, which means they're relative, right? And relativity, we've got three requirements: your past, present, your future. That's how the mind thinks and arranges experience. Time, space, causation. That's how it defines things, separates things. And then subject, object, verb, the duality, the fact that everything has to have a handle for the mind to grab it or pick it up. So those three triads prevent the mind from being able to understand or be able to describe God or to describe the experience of real being, of pure being. So our questioner starts off, he says, you talk of reality directly as the all-pervading, ever-present, eternal, all-knowing, all-energizing first cause. There are other teachers who refuse to discuss reality at all. They say reality is beyond the mind, while all discussions are within the realm of the mind, which is the home of the unreal. Their approach is negative. They pinpoint the unreal and thus go beyond it into the real. Maharaj, the difference lies in the words only. All right, so we're describing the same thing, he's saying. After all, when I talk of the real, I describe it as not unreal. Right? And why does he do that? Because nothing can be said about it. So that's why we talk in negations when we talk about that ultimate reality. I describe it as not unreal, spaceless. Okay, so it doesn't take up space. Space is not a part of the conversation. So it's spaceless, it's timeless, right? So it's eternal, it's outside of time. It's not measured by a period of existence. There's actually no boundary for it in time. It's causeless, all right? So it exists as it is for its own sake. There is no reason for it. You can't ask why because there is no why. Not that there is no reason, it's that there's no space for a reason to exist because it's purely this moment. Its existence as it is in this moment. There is no time around it, so you can't. I can't say any more than what I'm saying. Actually, I've already said too much. Okay, so it's not unreal, it's spaceless, it's timeless, it's causeless, it's beginningless, and it's endless. All right. What's he describing there? Well, really, what he's describing to you is this moment. What he's describing to you is yourself, right? We take all the things that do not change, right? I said there were three things the other day that don't change, and I can only remember the two of them. There's the self, right? That you that has been you through all the changes of your body, right? Never changed. You know that it's you always. There's this moment that doesn't change. Everything happens in the moment, but it doesn't pollute the moment. The moment is constantly in flux, constant, unrepeating change. But the moment itself is changeless. And then pure mind would be changeless, right? And so all three of those things are describing the same thing. They're describing self, they're describing God, they're describing, not describing, but pointing at, let's say, pointing at all of those things. And so you come to know yourself as moment, you come to know yourself as self, you come to know yourself uh, as pure mind, right? In the ultimate. It comes to the same. As long as it leads to enlightenment, what does the wording matter? Right? So that's sort of where we get this idea that all paths lead to the same goal. It's like as long as it leads to enlightenment, what does the wording matter? What does it the particulars don't matter. How you get there don't matter. The thing that matters is getting there. Does it matter whether you pull the cart or push it as long as it's kept rolling? You may feel attracted to reality at one time and repelled from the false at another. These are only moods which alternate. Both are needed for perfect freedom. You may go one way or the other, but each time it will be the right way at the moment. Just go wholeheartedly. Don't waste time on doubting or hesitating. Many kinds of food are needed to make the child grow, but the act of eating is the same. Theoretically, all approaches are good. In practice, and at a given moment, you proceed by one road only. Sooner or later, you are bound to discover that if you really want to find, you must dig at one place only. And where is that place? Within, he says. So your inner world is where you mine God. There you go. Your inner world is your quarry, right? Not, you've got enough from the books already. You've gotten enough from the gurus already. Now take all of those tools they've given you, all of those hints they've given you, and go make them your own. Go sit in your playground of your inner world with the spade of your guru and start digging. Start poking around at what your experience of being is. Get curious about the things inside. We've spent a whole life being curious and entertained by the things outside. So let us take some time and go inward to find out what's in there. I can tell you, we don't even have hardly an idea of what's in there. The very little bit of inner work that I've been successful at has been fascinating. When I first closed my eyes to go inward, I had no idea what that meant. I used to think that meant go in and think, that it was about sitting and thinking. That was how you go inward. And then I understood just purely by accident that there's something behind that. There's something behind thinking that's more interesting, right? And so you go in there with the idea of not thinking, which then becomes a very fun task of trying to slow that down. And then you sit in that space of non-thinking for probably less than a split second, and you get a piece of information or two about yourself. You understand your nature as eternal. That's one of the first things that occurs to you. You realize that time is not a constant in there. That sometimes you can go in there and come out and it's been 2 hours, and sometimes you go in there and come out and it's been 10 seconds. And you can't tell the difference between those two. And so you find out these things. So go and dig deep within. This is really quite a nice paragraph here because he says some things in very interesting ways. First of all, to describe the real, not as the real, but not the unreal, right? Because you just can't put any limit on it at all. And that idea of spaceless, just think about being spaceless for a moment. Can you even conceive of being spaceless? What does that mean? You couldn't hold it, you couldn't see it, right? You couldn't touch it if it's spaceless. You would have no evidence of it existing. It's spaceless, timeless. My goodness. You see You're taking all the handles off of it, and the mind is like, wait a minute, I was holding that. I was using that, right? So you take away timeless, no time. Can you conceive of something that is not subject to time, right? The first thing my mind tries to do is put something on the table that doesn't change. I'm like, well, there it is. That's something that's outside of time. No, no, that just means time's not having an effect on it, but it's still in time because it's laying on that table for a certain duration. But what if it's not in time at all? What does that mean? Causeless. There's nothing before it. Nothing made it happen. We can't conceive of that either. We'll say it has no beginning. Well, when did that happen? Right? Beginningless, beginningless, and endless. So we can't really know, but you can contemplate moment. You could sit and contemplate moment to get some ideas around this. You're not going to get the thing itself, but if you sit and contemplate being or existence, it will take you to some of these places, right? But you have to realize what you don't understand, right? You have to stop thinking that you've already figured most of these things out. You have to start asking questions, simple questions like that. What does it mean to exist? What does it mean to be outside of time? What does it mean to be without space? How is this possible? And then you just have to go inside and take those non-attributes as attributes and just sit in silence with them until they assemble themselves. And you're like, ah. You won't be saying anything. There won't be anything to say, but there'll be a knowing. There'll be a confidence that slowly forms, a suspicion that may never quite become proven to you, but becomes more obvious than anything else to you. So neither your body nor your mind can give you what you seek, the being and knowing yourself and the great peace that comes with it, right? So we're not asking body and mind for it, right? Who are we asking for it? There's an interesting idea. Who or what exactly are you asking for enlightenment from, right? And if your body and your mind uh, can't give you what you seek, where are you looking? Right? If it's not in the body, then it's not going to be a feeling. If it's not in the mind, it's not going to be a thought. It's not going to be information. You see, so this helps us figure out what we're looking for. What is what is the nature of it and why it's so hard to find? Because it's unlike anything we've ever looked for before. Right? A questioner says, well, surely there is something valid and valuable in every approach. Maharaj, well, in each case, the value lies in bringing you to the need of seeking within. All right, so in all cases, all these external things, right, the value lies in bringing you to the point where you need to seek within. It frustrates you from the externals. It's like, oh no, the external's not the place. Pull back, renounce, discern, let go. It's not that. It's the other direction. It's within, right? So in each case, the value lies in bringing you to the need of seeking within. Playing with various approaches may be due to resistance to going within, to the fear of having to abandon the illusion of being something or somebody in particular. Nail on the head. Boom, right there. Right? The fear, and I know this to be true in myself, although I don't know what to do about it because that fear is real. That fear of non-existence is quite terrifying. And we can't conceive of existence without particular. Right? We don't know what it means to say I am existence itself. We're like, well, what can I do with that? Right? So playing with various approaches maybe due to resistance to going within. Okay, so there's an interesting point. Your quest, the reason you're looking so hard, maybe because you're resisting. You're not ready to go within. You're afraid of what you might find, right? And it might totally destroy everything else that you've laid out so nicely on your table of life. And now they're going to take the table away. You might not be ready for that, so you're not answering the door. The bell's ringing, but you're not answering. So, right, so playing with various approaches, maybe because you're resisting, maybe because you're afraid to go within. The fear of having to abandon the illusion of being something or being somebody in particular, letting go of all of your attributes. It is terrifying. There is within each one of us a primordial fear of everything. We've squelched it. We've pushed it all the way down to the bottom of our stack because it's probably one of the first things we felt. It's probably what caused the tears when we exited the womb for the first time. We come out screaming for a reason. Ah! Oh my God, what is this? What is this? What is this? Right? To find water, you do not dig small pits all over the place, but you drill deep in one place only. Similarly, to find yourself, you have to explore yourself. When you realize that you are the light of the world, you will also realize that you are the love of it. That to know is to love, and to love is to know. Wow, there's a new idea for me. Have you guys heard that before? To know is to love is to know. That is, that makes me want to know, what does it mean to know? All right, to know
Wouldn't
means,
that be Satchitananda Maharaj?
yeah,
The knowing is the consciousness and the loving is the Ananda, the,
yes,
the
no,
chit.
it definitely is. Yes, it definitely is to know that that's definitely knowing that you are Satchitananda. But then the statement here, to know is to love. To love is to know. Knowing means would be intimacy. Knowing knowing something fully would be union with it. You would have to become it to know something fully. So that's why it's love, because love means union. Love means oneness. So this is where that's coming from. To know something fully, you become it. So there's no separation. It's pure intimacy. So to know is to love, and to love is to know. The same process. Loving and knowing. What a romantically beautiful idea. Wow. There's some beautiful poetry that could be written about that. Of all the affections, the love of oneself comes first. Your love of the world is the reflection of your love of yourself. For your world is your own creation. Light and love are impersonal, but they are reflected in your mind as knowing and wishing oneself well. We are always friendly toward ourselves, but not always wise. A yogi is a man whose goodwill is allied to wisdom. Well, there's some beautiful things in there. There's a lot in there, actually. He's saying things quite differently today than the way he normally does. So of the affection, of all the affections, the love of oneself comes first. And this is interesting because the love that you allow yourself is going to be the same love you allow anybody else to give you, right? So you have to, and this was, this was part of how we overcame depression, was taking this verse very literally, or this teaching very literally here, to demand your inner voice, to know that your inner voice, when your mind thinks, it's thinking before God. God is actually, it is the divine element in you, that is your God, the image of God within you, that is hearing your thought. A thought is a prayer that crosses the boundary. It's a prayer that gets directly to God, because that listener within you is the divine. It's attributeless. It is the divine. It's the one that hears everything, no matter what the source. And so that hearer that listens to your thought is God herself. And so we should live with that awareness, so that our thoughts to ourself should always be sacred and should always be kind. They should have all of those qualities in First Corinthians, remember? Love is patient, love is kind, you know. Love is not boastful, it does not anger easily. It always hopes, always believes, always trusts. Love never fails. And so we need to have, first and foremost, he's saying here, that this is the love we need to perfect. We have to believe in ourselves. Even if we've made mistakes consistently for 60 years, we have to get up and start a new day. And we have to do it beautifully. And we have to do it wonderfully and with our whole heart. So, of all the affections, the love of oneself comes first. You can't love anybody else if you're not stabilized in a love for your own self, right? Your love of the world is the reflection of your love of yourself, and this is why. All the love that you have for yourself is going to be the only love that you know, that you then project on all other forms of love that you encounter in this world. You're always going to project your idea of love on them, because we can't.
Maharaj, so
Yes,
this would be the ripe ego, right? Loving oneself.
yes, it would lead to the ripe ego. Absolutely. Yeah. Right? Because you would come to love yourself, you're going to have to know yourself, right? Because we just read that to know is to love. And so to love yourself, you have to know yourself. And the process of knowing yourself is ego destruction. The more you learn about yourself, the more you inquire of yourself, the less ego is going to be able to exist, because it's going to be obvious that it doesn't come from self, right? That ego comes from an interaction between body and mind and self, in response to that fear that we talked about. It's because of that primordial fear that we're, most of us, not really aware of, that lies within us. That was the impetus for creating an ego. An ego, we created an ego to have a way of living in this delusion, in this dreadful sense of constant danger and vulnerability of being a body mind. We had to come up with some way of ensuring ourselves that we're okay. Right? And that's why the ego is always looking for ways to build itself up, ways to validate its existence, always trying to get itself ahead in the pecking order, because that's your sense of safety. It's your sense of well, just that, security in a world where there is no security, right? In a world where everything is a constant, unrepeating flow of change. What is there to stand on if you're in a world of constant change? Where is the stability? Where is your platform of strength? You see? And that's where the ego comes in. Ego is delusion. It's the idea that I'm the doer. It's the idea that I can manage this. I can do this, right? In a world that you can't manage, in a world that you can't do, right? You're just too small. in this world. And so you can see where all of the impetus for our desires comes from. Desire is merely ego maintenance, right? Desire are just the ways that we build up ego, our sense of separation, our sense. It's the way we nourish our ego is through desire, right? All of our desires are basically to increase our sense of security, our sense of place.
The desire to dissolve ego,
What's that?
even the desire to dissolve ego.
No, the desire to dissolve ego is because you're not acquiring anything through that desire. You're returning to what you are through that desire. So desires for things for that which you already have is not the same as a desire from that which you think you do that you do not have, right? So to want enlightenment, to want freedom, those things are already yours. You don't know it. And so that desire leads toward them, but you don't actually acquire anything through that desire. It's for your own self that you desire. And that's all right. That's what makes it different. You're not going to go, you might go on a quest because you delusionally think that yourself is somewhere else. But the quest itself will bring you back. It won't lead you into delusion, deeper delusion. It will ultimately bring you back. All right, so all of the affections of the love of oneself comes first of all affections. Your love of the world is the reflection of your love of yourself, for your world is of your own creation. Light and love are impersonal, right? They just flow everywhere in the universe. They don't care who they're hitting, who they're not hitting, who they're reaching, who they're not reaching. So love of the world, so light and love are impersonal, but they are reflected in your mind as knowing and wishing oneself well. What a beautiful, what a beautiful way to describe a healthy inner world. A healthy inner world, right, is you knowing yourself and wishing yourself well. Just having a general fond regard of self. Now, where did we hear that word fond regard before? Right? We heard that in Brother Lawrence. Brother Lawrence talks about the presence of God, that he grew into a state of having a constant sense of a fond regard of being, right, of God. And so it's just this, it's not this crazy amped up volume 10. It's just a constant, steady state of knowing and wishing oneself well. Just being a positive flow, a gentle positive flow in the world. That's the ideal. We are always friendly toward ourselves, but not always wise, right? So we always wish ourselves well in there, but a lot of times we don't really know what well is. We think that having 9 pieces of chocolate cake is the ideal. And so we wish ourselves well and we ate 8 of them and we feel sick and we're like, well, what's going on? Right? Well, we forgot wisdom. Right? A yogi is a man whose goodwill is allied to wisdom, allied to wisdom. Right? So his goodwill, you know, yeah, because you see, this is the thing. When we don't have our wisdom attached to our will, to our goodwill, then a lot of times we reward people with things that are not helpful to them, right? An example of this would be like you've not eaten dessert all week and you've lost 2 pounds, and you're like, oh, wonderful! Tomorrow is a cheat day. I'm going to reward myself and give myself a piece of cake or whatever it is. Well, you see, you didn't put your wisdom on before you made that decision because cake is the thing that is not kind to you. Cake is not a reward. Cake is your problem. Cake is your trouble. It's the thing that causes you bondage, you know? So to offer yourself cake as a reward for being disciplined, uh, that's like offering to burn your head off because you didn't smoke a cigarette all week. It doesn't make sense. So we want wisdom to follow our goodwill. So when we try and help somebody, we help them in a wise way, right? We help them in a wise way. Because it doesn't always, that's the thing about Maya, is it flips things over. So things that look good turn out to be not good, and vice versa, you know. There's yeah. I got it. All right. Chapter 45. Anybody have any question or statements about anything we've looked at? There's a lot of great stuff in there. There's a lot of things that you could run quite a ways with in there. But this wisdom of attaching wisdom to our goodwill is an important one. It takes a lot of discernment because we do reward ourselves with things that are not rewards quite often. We give little pieces of our vice to ourselves, thinking that that's a good thing, a reward to ourselves. But it's not, because it makes us then perceive our vices as rewards. It makes us perceive our vices as good things, right? It doesn't allow us to renounce. It allows us to keep partially attached. So it's a very dangerous situation.
Maharaj, what does he mean when he says light and love? What is he exactly getting at when he says light?
Light is awareness.
Awareness. Okay.
Yeah, and love is awareness there, because the light and awareness are synonyms and are God,
Thank
are
you.
are the manifested divine. So yeah, so actually there is the only light in the world is awareness, right?
Right.
So light allows us to be aware, or light is the awareness.
Thank you.
All right. Questioner, I have come to be with you rather than to listen. Little can be said in words, much more can be conveyed in silence. Maharaj, well, first words, then silence. One must be ripe for silence, right? One must be ripe for silence. That means you have to be free of your own ideas first, right? You have to be free of noise first so that you can sit in silence, so you can know what silence is. Silence isn't just not having a voice. Silence is having no inner voice, right? Just quiet, absolute contentment. So first words and then silence. One must be ripe for silence. Questioner, can I live in silence? Maharaj, here is a beautiful piece of information. Write this one down. Unselfish work leads to silence. If you're trying to get to inner silence, here it is, concrete, something concrete about reaching inner silence. Unselfish work leads to silence. For when you work selflessly, you don't need to ask for help. You are indifferent to results. You are willing to work with the most inadequate means. You do not care to be much gifted and well equipped, nor do you ask for recognition and assistance. You just do what needs to be done, leaving success and failure to the unknown. For everything is caused by innumerable factors, of which your personal endeavor is but one. Yet such is the magic of man's mind and heart that the most improbable happens when human will and love pull together. Another beautiful, another beautiful thing here. So
What
unselfish
does
work,
it mean by will? And what did you say? Put together?
human will and love,
Okay.
right? Human will and love pull together. Such is the magic of man's mind and heart that the most improbable happens when human will and love pull together. That sentence literally tickles my mind as I read it. It literally feels like somebody scratching the belly of your mind, you know? It's like, yet such is the magic of man's mind and heart that the most improbable happens when human will and love pull together. And I love this image because I just see these two puzzle pieces, human will and love, pulling together. Like it's like two pieces of a sculpture that are meant to be one. When they pull together, you know, it's the most beautiful thing. Because what is human will? Human will is all of your insecurity. Your will is merely your imbalance, right? When you're feeling incomplete, when you're feeling unwhole, when you're feeling like you're missing something, that's human will. So it's this need, it's this hunger for, this desperation for. And the love, right? Love is the answer to that. Love is the unity. Love is the completion. So you put these two things together and they're just going to snap. Just as you put them close to each other, they're just going to chink and boom.
Maharaj, is that the human will? Is that synonymous to desire?
Yes. Yes, all will is desire. That's why I really stand firmly on the point that this idea of God's will is really nonsensical. God does not have a will. God does not have a lack. If God had a will, it would instantly be fulfilled because he's all powerful, all present, and all knowing. What would why would there be something left undone? You know? And so this moment is God's will, right? This moment is the will of God. That which is in this moment is the will of God. We will never understand it because we will only get barely a thimble full of information about what this moment is, and there's not enough in that for us to know anything, right?
So
Because
Maharaj, so sorry, go ahead.
no
Go ahead.
worries.
No,
Go for it.
so the love, when he says human will and love, now human will is what we think we have in control. We think, right? But does the love mean the grace that is not in our control? That would or would love also be in quote unquote our control?
Uh, no, it's really here. I think he's talking about the marriage between ego and self.
The
Our
big self.
will, yeah, the ego would be will because incomplete, it's imperfect, it's conjured together by delusion. So it has a constant will of its own existence, of its own well-being, of its own
Right.
perseverance,
Right.
right?
But the
And when
love
that
is the grace then?
love is the reality.
Right.
Love is the truth. You know, love is what is. And so when ego meets that love, well, we've had that experience in partial, you know. Uh, One of my best experiences of it was that when I first went to college, right? And I had been in the dorms for 6 months. That's my first time away from my family like that in my whole life. First time I was not seeing my mother for more than a few days. And suddenly she's been gone for months and I've been at college for months. And one day I'm coming home from class and I open the door to my hall in the dorm, and standing at the far end of the hall is who? My mother. They came up for a surprise visit for the weekend. And I tell you, I ran. I mean, this was 45 years ago. And I ran. And I could, if I sit here and think about it, I get weepy, I get teary eyed. Because I just remember as I ran, I just threw off my backpack, you know, threw off my winter jacket and just ran and just literally almost pushed my mother through the window into the parking lot when I got there. Just threw my arms around her and I remember that, you know, you become aware of all that stuff you don't normally think about your mom, the way she smells, the way her hair is and feels and all that. And I just remember that embrace of hugging my mom for the first time as a freshman in college when she came to visit. That to me is what I see when he says this. Yet such is the magic of man's mind and heart that the most improbable happens when human will and love pull together. Which really, what is that? When human will and love finally actually come together, that's enlightenment, that's realization, you know. But in the process of that, the most improbable happens, the most unlikely things become reality when this happens. Because what is it when this happens? I mean, when this kind of thing happens, you've got Peter stepping out of the boat to walk on water. You've got the woman walking across the river to see her guru. You've got the man saying, if I've had not eaten today, may the river part, and they just walk across. These are the most improbable things, right? Walking on water, very improbable. Stopping a stream from running and splitting an ocean, very improbable. And yet, when these things, human will and love come together, the most improbable happens. When human will and love pull together. Questioner, well, what is wrong with asking for help when the work is worthy? Right? So he's addressing, why does unselfish work mean that you don't ask for help? Right? Because you're not doing it to get done. And if you're not doing it to get done, the need for help is not necessary. Right? Yes, it could go faster if you had two people doing it. It would be easier if the other person was holding the other end, but you're doing it as worship. You're not doing it to be easy. You're not doing to be efficient, right? That's one of the things took me a long time. I'm still learning that one because I remember in the monastery, Swami, the day I learned this little thing here really blew my mind. Because in the monastery, I was responsible for the accounting. And so I would have to take all of our receipts and I'd have to label them all and highlight the expenses and then put them on a spreadsheet and, put them all in their categories and the accounts that the money should come out of to cover them and all that. I have to do all that work every month. And then I would print it out of my computer and I would send it over to the office. And the nuns would then take all that and enter it all back into their computer. Right? And so I remember going to Swami and saying, Maharaj, this is so inefficient. Why can't I just, put my computer on the office network and then I could fill these things out and they could go through and just check them off. And as they check them off, they would automatically go into the system. They wouldn't need to be re-entered. And Maharaj told me, he says, no, there should be no connection between the work of the nuns and the monastery. There should be no form of ability to communicate. So I don't want them on the network. And then he says, and furthermore, he says, this place is not here for efficiency. This place is here for realization, and you are doing that work for karma yoga, not to get it done, not to be efficient. So he says, remember that. This place is not here for efficiency. This place is here for realization. Boom! My mind blew open. I was like, what? No wonder this is so frustrating for me. No wonder. No wonder I think this order is insane. Right? Literally, my first few years, I was like, what are you doing? What? What? Why are we doing what? Are you kidding me? Right? And you walk around, that ego is just kicking you around the block for the first few years when you're walking in to the organization and you think that they don't know how any better. You think that you're coming from the corporate world and you walk in and you're like, why are you guys doing it that way? What in the world? This place is so backwards. This place is so strange, right? And you think it's because your ego is telling you it's because you know better. And so your first years in the monastery, walking around looking at the funky way everything is done, thinking, Do these people have no brains whatsoever? And then you start to understand this place isn't about the world. Efficiency is not here. Streamlining is not the point. Getting it finished, not the point. Doing it the easiest and fastest way, not the point. This is worship. This is service, and it's for realization, not a product. Right? And then you
Sounds like a
understand.
pretty good job, actually.
Yeah, well, we've got an opening, incidentally. Any one of you could join. I told that to Swami when I was or to one of the Swamis when I was over in PPTC training center. Back then, it was really clear to me the monks had a wonderful life. I mean, every monk had his own bed, his own space, got all of his food, had clothing, was taking care of health care, all of that. And I'd walk outside of those gates of Bellarmont back in the 90s, and I would just see poverty and suffering just everywhere. And I went to Swami and I told him, I says, where is the renunciation, Maharaj? I said, the monks here live so much better than everybody on the other side of the wall. And he stopped. He said, yes, it is a puzzle. He says, we still have many vacancies. All right? We still have so many vacancies. But that's the interesting thing. Renunciation isn't what you're doing with or without. Renunciation really, at the end of the day, is you being able to make your own choices, right? Renunciation is the denial of that. It's like taking the moment, what it gives you, and not being discontent, not looking for another answer. And so not being able to direct your own life, that's the ultimate renunciation. And that's what you run into immediately when you join the monastery. Nobody asks you what you want for breakfast. Nobody asks you what time breakfast is. Nobody. Everything is as it is, and it's yours to flow into it. There is no you and yours here. And so that's renunciation. All right. Sorry about that little detour there. What time are we looking at? 8:54. Okay, we'll do this one more paragraph. What is wrong with asking for help when work is worthy? What is the need of asking? It merely shows weakness and anxiety. Work on, and the universe will work with you. After all, the very idea of doing the right thing comes to you from the unknown. Leave it to the unknown as far as the results go. Just go through the necessary movements. You are merely one of the links in the long chain of causation. Fundamentally, all happens in the mind only. When you work for something wholeheartedly and steadily, it happens, for it is the function of the mind to make things happen. In reality, nothing is lacking and nothing is needed. All work is on the surface only. In the depths, there is perfect peace. All your problems arise because you have defined and therefore limited yourself. Listen to that. All of your problems arise because you have defined and therefore limited yourself. When you do not think yourself to be this or that, all conflict ceases. Any attempt to do something about your problem is bound to fail, for what is caused by desire can be undone only in freedom from desire. All right, that's another zinger. We've got so many t-shirts and bumper stickers today, it's crazy. Right? In reality, nothing is lacking, nothing is needed, all work is on the surface only. In the depths, there is perfect peace. All your problems arise because you have defined and therefore limited yourself. When you do not think yourself to be this or that, all conflict ceases. Any attempt to do something about your problems is bound to fail. For what is caused by desire, right? So all of your problems are caused by desire. What is caused by desire can only be undone in freedom from desire. You have enclosed yourself in time and space. You have squeezed yourself into the span of a lifetime and the volume of a body. and thus created the innumerable conflicts of life and death, pleasure and pain, hope and fear. You cannot be rid of problems without abandoning illusions. Yet another t-shirt. You cannot be rid of problems without abandoning illusions. What a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful thing. This whole paragraph, boy, if you were looking for something to sit and ponder, something to meditate on, this paragraph and a comfortable rock by a little creek or a lake somewhere would be a wonderful day. There's so much here. All right, well, we'll stop here for this morning.